Hey guys, welcome back to Learn for Two podcast. This is Brandon DeVere, and thank you as always for tuning in. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you sharing your time with me. Today we are going to episode number 3 of the interview series of the Learn for Two podcast, and we have a very special guest with us, one that I've been wanting to have on for a long time, and now it really makes a lot of sense because of kind of the things that are going on right now, and how people are starting to feel a little bit, maybe down in the dumps a little bit, but. We are very lucky to have Mr. Scott Mendell here to explain to us some things about some, weight loss and depression and, some subjects that we sometimes don't like to talk about. Scott, thank you very much for taking the time to hang out with us. How are you doing today?
Absolutely, my pleasure. If I can help anyone, I'm happy to.
Awesome. I love that. So we had a quick little chat beforehand, and we'll get into some of the things that we talked about from that. But can you just give us a little bit of a backstory of where you're at, how you got to the point you're at right now?
Okay, this started in the early '90s when I went through what I call my year from hell. I lost almost everybody I cared about in my life inside of a year. My grandmother died, followed, and now she had Alzheimer's, and her death was more of a blessing than anything, but still a loss. Mm-hmm. But then my mother, 3 months later, was told that she had 6 months to live. She had breast cancer that had metastasized. Lost her on December 11th. 4 months later, my fiance started sleeping with my best friend. A month after that, the dog I'd had for 15 years was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I lost him. I was taking care of my mother's father. I was the only one in the family that would go visit him in the home. And on one trip up, I was trying to transfer him between his wheelchair and a toilet, and I cracked 3 of his ribs. A week after that, he started throwing mini strokes, and a stroke finally hit him. I was told by the doctor that the cracked ribs were the cause of the stroke that killed him. In my mind, that meant that I had killed my grandfather. It took me a while and while I did, while it was my action that caused it, it wasn't really my fault, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Plus, he had lost his wife and his only daughter right beforehand. He was not happy. He was in a bad spot. And over the years, I've become okay with that happening. But then shortly after that, I lost my other grandfather. My father had gone through everything that I'd gone through and had locked himself in his house, basically. And so I was left with 2 family members that I didn't speak to, one who was suffering as bad as I was, and everybody else in my life, my best friend, my girlfriend, my dog, my mom, my grandparents, everybody was gone just in an instant. And it destroyed me mentally. And actually, up until we started this group that we're in right now, this mastermind group that we've got, and we started exploring a lot of the ideas with this mental fitness that we're talking about, I hadn't considered PTSD as something that I had. Mm-hmm. But having gone through that trauma that I did, I look back now and understand that I definitely had PTSD. I had every symptom, every classic symptom of it. And it has helped me understand a lot about the recurrences that I've had. For the first 6 months after all of that happened, I was basically a shut-in. I couldn't go outside. I couldn't eat. I could barely sleep. I tell people it hadn't been for the Legend of Zelda, the original version on the original Nintendo, I probably wouldn't have lived, because I played that game like 8 hours to 10 hours a day. And it was the only thing that allowed my mind to quit thinking about death and loss and pain. I mean, when you're in such a place that you're so hurt and so in such emotional pain that even the act of eating makes you sick. Um, you're in a very, very, very dark spot. I came very close to hanging myself one evening, and the story of how I survived that is a whole nother topic that we can touch on at some point. But I was saved by a young lady that I'd met once, and that after she got me out of the house that day, I actually never saw her again. The weirdest thing. But I like to tell people that once you've actually danced with death like that it never leaves you, because depression, it physically alters the makeup of your brain. It alters the way the chemical receptors work inside of your brain. It actually, severe clinical depression shuts down parts of your brain. And of course, I learned all this as the years went by, and like new techniques and new technologies came up where, like a functional MRI was done on me, and it literally showed the frontal lobe of my brain was dark. I mean, there was no activity in it. And you would think that would be a horribly depressing thing, but I walked out of there elated, because I'd always been telling everybody that what I was feeling was like I was just turned off, like I was gone, like I wasn't awake anymore. And since the frontal lobe controls personality, that's really what had happened. My personality had been turned off. And it was exciting to actually have physical proof of what was actually taking place. And so when your brain gets jarred and turned and switched off and back on, it leaves scars. And, while a lot of our scars are visual, and you can brag about them. Oh, I got this when I got, in a bar fight, or, I got that one sliding into third base, or, oh, I got this one because I almost died from appendicitis. The scars that you can't see are so much worse, because there's no evidence externally to other people that you've suffered that trauma, and they don't know whether it's real or imaginary, or if there's something they can do about it. And so these scars that are still there affect you for the rest of your life. You're more susceptible to depression. You're more susceptible to a whole wide variety of medical conditions. And a lot of people don't like to talk about this, because they don't like to say that they have they're suffering from a mental disease. But we are. And because it's such a shameful thing that people don't talk about, or they think it's shameful, it's still, we still end up with school shootings. We still end up with people killing themselves. We still end up with, murder and suicide. And if everybody were more okay talking about it, and they had avenues to talk with other people that understood, without a clinical setting or the stigma attached to it, I think a lot of things that happen today will cease happening in the future. And that's why I talk about it, is because I want to be able to let others know that you're not alone. I have gone through this. I may have gone through something worse than you did. And if I'm sitting here today healthy, then you can be too. It's not going to be easy. It's going to suck, as a matter of fact. But you can do it. I promise you can do it. And so I've been up and down. I mean, I've been close to suicide 3 times in my life. The last time was only 2 years ago. I had started getting healthy again. I started walking or running 6 miles a day. That was my go-to thing, because I really enjoyed it. And I got injured. And it was about 2 months in when I got injured. And in my mind, it was like God said, "You're screwed. You don't need to be doing this. Stop doing this. This is not good for you." And I quit. myself. I quit my life. I quit caring. I was like, well, if I'm going to be fat, I'm going to be fat. And I dove off the deep end of a Bacchanalian food orgy. If it had sugar in it, if it had carbs in it, I consumed it. And I gained something like 30 to 45 pounds in 6 months. Went from like 225, maybe even 50 pounds, 225, 230 to, I think my highest weight was like 275, 277. And I was in horrible physical condition. And those thoughts were invading my mind again. And it was about that point in time where Ryan had come up with the idea of IODs, Impact of the Day writings. And I really didn't have a clue what I was going to write about, why I was writing. It was just like, he challenged us to do it. So, hey, if Ryan said do it, let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, that opened the door to an avenue that I'd never been down before. I'd never written about what had happened. And I'd really only told the whole story to maybe, I don't know, 15 to 20 people in my entire life. But you know how special this group is that we're in. I had told probably 3 people inside the group, my closest friends inside the group, about my year from hell. And every one of them's like, oh my God, you've got to tell your story. You have got to tell your story. There are other people and I was like everybody else, man, I did not want to share this publicly because it was going to label me, because people were going to treat me differently, because, oh my God, he's been suicidal. We need to be so careful around him. No, you don't. In fact, that pisses me off more than anything. I'm a normal human being. Yes, I almost killed myself. I'm all right with that. I've been through it. I've lived through it. I mean, how many times have you gone out and participated in drunk driving? If you've done it, then you've tried to kill yourself at least once. You just won't acknowledge that that's what you did. And so I decided that with the encouragement of these folks that I was going to tell it publicly for the first time ever. And the response was unreal. There was no labeling. There was no, I'm not even sure what the word to use is. There,
Judgment?
Yeah, no judgment. Thank you. There was no judgment on me at all. Everybody was like, oh my God, I can't believe you survived that. Man, if I'd gone through that, I probably would have killed myself. That's unbelievable. And people look more at the reasons that I got to that point rather than the actual thought of doing it. Mm-hmm. They were understanding that it drove me to there. And with that understanding came a lot of relief, because I wasn't hiding anymore. I didn't have to wear the mask anymore. That mask is heavy, 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 heavy to wear. When you have to go through your daily life knowing that this affects you and that you deal with it constantly, and you have to hide that from other people, and you have to act differently around them because you don't want them to know you've thought about suicide or tried it, or that you are depressed. And that's the worst thing with depression is everybody wants to hide it from people that care about them. It's just how it works, because when you get depressed, you want to be alone. You want to be left alone. You don't want people telling you you're going to be okay. You want that demon inside of you wants to pull you away from, everything that might help you recover. And so by writing and getting it out there and telling that story, it kind of broke that hold that demon had on me for so long. It was now out there. It was public. Everybody knew about it. And everybody understood. And so it kind of lifted a little bit off of my soul. And so I started writing, and the way Ryan does the IODs, it's mind, body, business, relationship, right? Mm-hmm. And so finally one of them came up that was body. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to, how am I going to write about body? I mean, I've got C cup man tits, and I've never had them before in my life. And I didn't really realize at that point until, have you seen my before and after pictures?
Well, I just saw one on Facebook recently. It looks like one you might be at work, and the other one you got like the ladder, like at the gym.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
the one, I wasn't at work. I was actually doing a volunteer day. This was a month after I'd started working out. I was volunteering at the Houston Food Bank, and I happened to be streaming it live on Facebook. And it's the only photo you will find of me at close to my high weight, because I avoided cameras like the plague. And so I looked at that photo when Ryan asked us to post them. I'd never even looked at it. And I saw it and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea I'd gotten that big, that I looked like I was 11 months pregnant with triplets. and that first body IOD, I was like, oh my God, I've got to write about working out, but I'm not working out, but maybe I should. And so I wrote that. And then I wrote one about trying to find a diet. And sure enough, in July, after I'd written 4 body IODs that were talking about working out, it was like, okay, I've got to do this. So the diet, and I researched diets for a month before I got into it. The diet started, and the exercise started in earnest. And in 3 months, I'd lost 50 pounds. And
Incredible.
What I love about this is Ryan saw the transformation in me, and I was the catalyst behind Story Athlete.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He saw the transformation, and you know how his brain works. He said, how can we get everybody in the group to realize that transformation? And it was amazing to think that why he didn't reach out to me about any of it. He saw and bragged about my weight loss. And then the next thing you know, 9 months later, we've got Story Athlete. and I was like, God, this is awesome. But now I'm scared. and so the greatest combination inside that I've discovered, and this has been, let's see, if it was June 1st of 18, we're coming up on almost 2 years now. 20 months, I guess, and April, May, June, 21 months. In those 20 months, I've discovered the absolute secret to defeating depression permanently.
Wow.
And it's yes, you got to get the weight under control, because body image, I don't care about all this body shaming nonsense that's going on, this political correctness that you can't call people fat and unhealthy. And it's okay if you wear a size 16. No, it's not. You're sick. You're dying very slowly. You are committing suicide by food. And it needs to stop. And when you are heavy, I don't care who you are. You know you're overweight. You feel overweight. Your clothes don't fit right. You can't walk up 2 flights of stairs without stopping halfway. And I'm not talking, 10 or 20 pounds overweight. I'm talking 50 to 100 to 200 pounds overweight. I mean, look at that. What is that TV show about being overweight?
Biggest Loser?
Well, that one and My 600-Pound Life.
Oh, yeah, okay. I don't think I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen it before.
And The Biggest Loser is a great one, because if you look at those people, look at their transformation and look at the way they act at the beginning, and then when they've lost 50 pounds or 100 pounds, they're in tears because they feel so much better. And what's funny is that first 50 pounds that I lost, everybody's like, oh my God, you must feel so much better. And I didn't. I didn't feel better at all, because although I'd lost 50 pounds, I'm still 50 pounds overweight. And that's a lot of weight you're still in the clinically obese they call it morbidly obese category, because morbidly obese is 40 pounds overweight or more. And so when you're there, you've lost some weight, but you're still really, really over. I'm still overweight now, and I've lost 100 pounds of pure fat. And so
Congratulations.
Thank you. And yeah, it's been a journey. You've been there for most of it. But when you aren't happy with the way you look, you can't be happy mentally. I mean, you can't. And so it's one of those where getting and that was my 82-year-old father that I take care of, just walked out. I wanted to say something, right. Wave him off. You have to get yourself back physically first, because that's such a key to self-image and self-esteem. And I think it was Mark Brody that wrote the post about respect, and not only your respect for others, but respect for yourself. And you can't respect others until you respect yourself. And I'd never thought about that, but it's kind of like, you can't love others until you love yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, my God, that really makes sense, because if you can't love somebody unless you love yourself, truly love somebody, then how can you respect somebody if you don't have any respect for yourself? And how can you respect yourself if you know you're killing yourself? And it all ties in with self-image. And once you start getting that back, and I'm telling you, this journey from 275 pounds to I'm like 205 now, and I say I've lost 100 pounds of pure fat because I watch the body fat percentage and the muscle percentage, and I've put on like 29, 32 pounds of pure muscle.
Wow.
And so my overall weight loss, if you take the muscle out of the effective well, is like 110 pounds. But Ryan asked us the other day what our biggest physical change had been through grit, and what we noticed. And I said, well, and this is kind of funny, but it's that the sleeves on my Story Athlete t-shirt actually are tight on my arms rather than hanging there loose and baggy like they used to. Mm-hmm. And I think that's funny, because I always make fun of people that walk around and flex and show off. Now I'm looking at myself in the mirror every now and then going, yeah, look at that. That's it. Yeah. And then I catch myself like, oh my God, I'm turning into one of those guys.
That's awesome.
But when you get that, then the mental side starts to come together once you get the weight together. And once the mental side starts coming together, you've got 2/3 of the battle over. And the real secret isn't about teaching yourself better self-talk. It's not about losing weight and exercising. It's not about drugs or therapy. It's about putting two things together that create something that I never even thought of, and that's writing every single day, because it lets you see not only your progress, but it lets you see your emotional state. It lets you explore things that you might not be able to explore inside your own head. And it allows you to do the one thing that is the biggest secret of all, and that's build a tribe that supports you. The key to getting through all of this, even when I started before Story Athlete and Grit came around, the key was having this group of y'all. My mastermind Story, and we weren't Story Athlete then, we were Protect Your Social Superheroes. PSS. But I had those friends that were the ones that encouraged me to, mentally vomit all this stuff onto pages. And if you go back on my Facebook, there's over a year's worth of writing on there that was every single day. And so the tribe, the support, the love, the constant encouragement that came from that is what gave me the edge to keep going and not rebound. Because fighting depression is a lot like dieting. Without the Story Athlete, without the writing daily, without, putting it out publicly, my entire life, I did the same thing that everybody else does. I would diet and then I'd get fat. I would diet and I would get fat. It's the yo-yo, right? Mm-hmm. Depression is the exact same thing. You may defeat it, but you're going to hang down here and then it's going to come back. There's some event that's going to happen that's going to make it recur. And when you don't have a support system, there's a squirrel over here having fun in a kumquat tree. He's dropping them all over everywhere. When you don't have the support network to fall back on when things start getting rough again, that demon is going to latch onto you and start talking to you again and start pulling you away from those people that will support you. And you're more than willing to do it because you don't know how to fight it. And that's one of the things we've all discovered is, and Ryan calls it the lesser self. I call it the demon or the wimpy self. It's that voice inside of you that is hurtful to who you are, to the one that keeps you from becoming, your best version of yourself. And when you don't have the tools and you don't have the tribe and you don't have the support, that voice is very, very loud. Every single one of us has written about that voice and how loud it can get. And we've got people in here that have been, part of this tribe for years and are still falling victim to it. Carmela, just the other day, wrote that her voice won again. And sometimes for some of us, it takes, a long time to recover. Like I've been going through depression recovery since 1993. And only this year, well, not 2020, but let's say the last 21 months, have I really figured out how to get beyond it. And if anybody listening to this needs help, first thing you do is reach out to people that love you. Start writing, start building your tribe. And if it's really, really bad, go get professional help. Because I can tell you how I got through it, but I'm what they call a clean depressive. And by that means there are no underlying conditions. There's no psychosis or psychopathy. There's no, lithium imbalance. There's no chemical imbalance in the brain, period. Mm-hmm. There's no PTSD that might be underlying it. There's no traumatic brain injury that might be underlying it, because those things need medication. ADD, adult, ADD. Mm-hmm. Medication, like if you got a lithium imbalance and you're bipolar, you have to be on medication. I had an uncle that was bipolar. As soon as he got on medication, he was fine. And now, does he like being on it? Not particularly, but that's a whole other story. But when you're a clean depressive, you can beat it by just working through it like I'm relaying. Writing, tribe, exercise, good diet. And that doesn't mean, yes, if you really want to lose weight, you got to give up sugar. But, sugar makes you feel good. Chocolate makes you feel good. So every now and then, fine. Go have a crazy day and indulge. Make yourself feel good. We all need it every now and then. But understand that most of the time you need to give yourself good food to power that structure that you're trying to rebuild. And so that's why I do this, and that's why I started writing, and that's why I share this experience, is because I don't want people to suffer as much as I have for as long as I have. And you mentioned talking about people that aren't depressed but have a loved one or a friend or somebody they know that is, and how to handle that. Can we
get to that in just a second? I just want to touch on a couple things that you said earlier, and just to kind of give not necessarily a blueprint for people that may be suffering, but certain things like what I found interesting as far as exercise. I know you said that you like to walk and things like that, but things that people may not think of as exercise. Maybe someone doesn't go to the gym or has never really been, didn't really like PE, didn't do anything pretty much their whole life exercise-wise, and they don't know, and they think that it's exercise is just going to the gym. What I found fascinating is that you lost a lot of weight with jump ropes, right? With weighted jump ropes.
I did. Yeah.
And that's not something that pops to the top of my head when I think of working out, right? But
I can tell you, it didn't pop to the top of mine either.
but
that was a pure accident that I got into that.
Yeah. So my point is, when for people to start exercising and start getting to feel good, it doesn't mean they need to run a mile today. If they
Oh
haven't
no,
run a mile in 15 years, go walk around the
no,
block today, or
yeah, walk a block,
toss a
absolutely,
football up to yourself, or dribble the basketball around the block, or just something
or go
like
play
that.
catch with your kid.
Yeah, exactly.
If you got children, go play catch with your kid. I guarantee you, they'll wear you out.
Yeah.
Go play hide and seek with them. You think that's not exercise? Go play hide and seek for an hour. You know, Hell, just go keep up with your kid for an hour.
Yeah.
That'll wear you out. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's like, Fat Ryan said, is one of the reasons he wanted to get rid of the dad bod was he was telling these kids he wouldn't go out and play with them. And he made a million excuses, but he knew it was because it was going to make him tired.
Yeah.
And so, yes, absolutely. I mean, I started off that jump rope thing because I had gotten injured. And what I had was, it's called metatarsalgia. And it's an inflammation on your foot of one of the knuckles. And I thought I'd actually torn a tendon in my foot. That's how painful it was. And I went to the orthopedic surgeon the very next day and said, "Oh my God, I've really wrecked my foot." And he said, "Oh, here, touch. Does this hurt?" "Yeah." "Dang it, don't do that again." And he touched several other places. He goes, "Oh no, you got metatarsalgia." I was like, "What?" I mean, I've got a biomedical science degree. I know most of the terminology, and I've never heard of this. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You've been exercising recently, haven't you?" And I was like, "Yes." He goes, "A lot?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm trying to lose weight." He goes, "Yeah, it's caused by being overweight and overexercising." I was like, "Oh, great." And that's when I came to the conclusion that God didn't want me to work out anymore. So when I came back into it, I was like, what am I going to do? My foot, because the doctor told me that I had to be off of it for 6 months for it to heal. And I'm sorry, that's never going to happen. Not in my life. You're going to have to break my leg for me to stay off a foot. And so I was like, what in the world can I possibly do? And after I wrote that body IOD that said, I'm going to start working out, I was going to go outside and get through it. I didn't care how, I didn't care how much it hurt. I was going to figure out something. I was walking down my staircase, and at the bottom, tied around the baluster head, was an old Joe Weider jump rope. The old cotton rope with the squishy foam handles. It had been hanging there for so long unused, the handles were crispy. But I thought, hey, I used to jump rope as a kid. At least this will give me something to warm up, and maybe it won't hurt my foot. So my decision was to go out and just do 50 times in a row without stopping. Well, I found out that I couldn't do 10 in a row without tripping on the rope. When, as a kid, you can jump rope for an hour and it doesn't even bother you. That night, it took me 2.5 hours to get 50 in a row. I was sweating so hard when I stopped, it was literally pouring off of me in puddles. My calves were cramped up. My abs were cramped up. Every part of me hurt. And I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And so that was my deal. It was like, okay, if this is going to be this hard to work out and it doesn't hurt my foot, that's how I'm going to do it. And being myself, I deep dived jump rope on the web and found out it's the most effective workout, calorie burning, low impact workout you can do, period. It burns more calories than running, swimming, tennis, aerobics, everything. It burns more calories, period. And I guarantee you get a half-pound jump rope and try doing it for 15 minutes without stopping, you will pass out. And it did. With the keto diet and nothing more than jumping rope once or twice a week for 3 months, I dropped 50 pounds.
Wow.
Instantly. And so, yeah, I mean, go find anything you can do, anything. Just start moving, because once you start moving, it's that momentum. It's that one, like we talk about, that 1% daily that it gives you that sense of accomplishment. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you get that momentum built, it's much easier to keep it going. Because the hardest thing in the world is to break the friction of being at a stop. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely.
No, it's great advice, because I know that people will. Well, I'm going to go get a gym membership, or like right now. I think in our climate that we're in the world right now, where everyone is having to do their normal stuff at home, I think people are starting to realize a little bit more that, you know what, and I'm not trying to take away from any gyms out there. So any gym owners, I'm not trying to say that people shouldn't go to you, but what I'm saying is that you can go get enough of a workout in your backyard or around your block or whatever, in your
Oh
pick
my
up your
gosh, do
dog
one
food
of our
bag
grit
10 times and
workouts. You'll
squat them
find
or
out
something.
what workout is. Yeah.
What's that?
I said, yeah, go do one of our grit workouts. It's all body weight. You'll find out real quick how fast you can get a workout at the house.
Exactly. So the other thing I wanted to touch on before we move on to the other question was
Sure.
the how much writing has helped and having that tribe. And one of the things that I've found, and having the stigma and trying to shed that. So about 4 or 5 months ago, I wasn't sharing as much. I was still sharing some things, but there was things I was holding back for the stigma. For instance, my son is battling some pretty significant anticipatory anxiety when it comes to getting to school. And so it's been 4 months. Obviously, they're not in school now, but we were just getting back to a half day of school, and this is after 4 months of trying to get him there. Something I wasn't going to share with anybody because I felt like a failure, that I was a dad that couldn't get his kid to school. So I had that stigma, but then also same thing. I peeled back a little bit, and like you said, someone else is going to need to hear this because they're going to need to move forward. And one of the things that I found by opening up like that, not only just it being cathartic from the writing standpoint to get it out and your progress, but the tribe that was not necessarily even my tribe that became my tribe of people that are start rooting for you and
Yes.
rooting for your on Facebook. I got people going, way to go, Camden. Like my son made it to 15 minutes of school, and that was a huge deal for us. And everyone is rooting him on. And it's, when you do that and you let people, Ryan says all the time, if you go first, you give people permission to go. And some people are just waiting for you to go first so that they can go. And so I just wanted to talk about that. I mean, have you had a bunch of people start rooting for you, like come out of kind of nowhere and just be like, hey, we're right behind you?
Yeah, it's it's actually really funny because while a lot of people might not respond to a Facebook post or they might not press like, you'll run into them somewhere and they're like, oh my God, I've read all your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a client that I'm friends with their family. I've known him for years. The dude's in phenomenal shape. He's a triathlete. His wife took up bodybuilding for a while. She's into roller derby. I mean, hyper fit family, right? And I used to play tennis with him before I got huge. And just the other day, and he hasn't said anything. He hasn't liked any of my posts or anything like that. But he reached out to me about wanting to know the value of his house currently with a new addition that he put onto it. And the very first thing he said in this text was, man, I just want you to know I've been following your weight loss journey online, and it's amazing what you've done. I can't wait until we can start playing tennis again. And
awesome.
I didn't even know he was reading my stuff. But that's the thing is when you put it out there in a public forum like that, you are going to reach a lot more people than you think you are reaching. I found out that one of my friend's moms reads my stuff, and she's 78 years old, I think. And the way I found out was my friend called me and she said, I can't believe you used the F word in your post. I was like, why can't you believe that? She goes, oh my God, no, my mom reads your stuff. And she was mortified. She said she didn't know you were that type of guy. So you never know who's reading your stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've had people approach me tell me that they made their son read it at the soccer field. Hey, obviously there's me and their son aren't friends, but I've had people text me. I wish that I could share that, and stuff like that. So it's definitely awesome in that way. And you do get people to root for you, and you never know. Obviously Cliff has his path to 1 million. He was actually interviewed on here. And I joked with him and kind of sort of joking about it should be path to 100 million, because I'm telling him he'll never know the amount of people that he's impacted. He never will. Because it's not just the people that listen, it's the people that impact. I mean, it's just exponential impact all over.
To use a very current term, it's really like a virus. It is viral because that one person might share it with two other people who might share it with, what was that old commercial, you tell two people and they'll tell two people and they'll tell two people and they'll tell two. Yeah. And that's what it's like, because you never know the impact that you can you can have, like when Mark Brody reached out to me about his friend
Mm-hmm.
that he was very concerned about. Next thing you know, he's got 3 friends that he's using my advice with.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact that one of them has gotten through their problems.
Oh,
And
that's
I'm
awesome.
sure that they'll share that with other people. Ryan is constantly referring me to people in our group that are really depressed, and I try and help them. And in turn, they're helping other people in the group. And yeah, it's a domino effect. You tap that first one, you and I are the first one in line. As soon as we fall, it runs. And it's a great thing. And I really don't care if I ever know however many people I reach. I know that personally I've saved 3 lives so far. And as long as these lives are saved, that's all I care about. I don't need the acknowledgement. It feels good to get the acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but it's not a necessary thing. This was, and I tell Ryan this all the time, and I've told several other people in the group, this is more about my recovery than it is about my helping other people. And through my recovery, if I do help other people, that's awesome. And at some point, I will write a book about it and actually try to help other people. But I need to know that I've actually accomplished what I want to accomplish. That this is something that I have permanently defeated. That these steps actually are the way to redemption. And so Ryan talks about, get it out there before it's perfect. But in this case, it won't be perfect even at that point, but I'll have that foundation. I am redeemed. I'm cured. I'm done with depression, and you can be too. And so, yeah, I mean, that's our whole purpose is trying to help others get through what we're going through.
Yeah, and it's as simple as just sharing. So I mean, that's awesome that you're willing to share. I've talked to a number of people that they fight that stigma. They don't want to say anything. They want to help people, but they don't really want to make themselves look less. And totally understandable, because it's not just a view that they're holding; it's a view that other people hold of weakness as well. So
right.
definitely understand that. But I kind of want to fast forward a little bit to what we were just about to talk about, and about not necessarily just someone that is contemplating suicide or really having depression. Like you mentioned, Mark reached out to you because he had a friend that he was getting real like touch and go there. And so I thought about him, and also I had a friend that took his own life a little over almost a year and a half ago. And my immediate response was, I was up until like 1-2 in the morning scrolling through all the messages that I had on Facebook with him, everything, looking for what, his last message to me was like, I'm going to rise up like the Phoenix and become, something amazing. And I said, I'm rooting for you. And that was the last conversation that we had. And for the next 2 days, I was questioning myself as a friend. Am I good enough? What did I miss? If I'm that good of a friend, how did I miss this? And he was gone. I mean, it took me a couple of days to overcome it, because I found out a couple other things that actually was going on as well. But nonetheless, I still questioned my ability. And just like Mark, I'm assuming, was questioning what is he to do? Like, what kind of advice would you give for someone in that type of scenario?
Yeah, this is, and I'm trying to remember exactly what I told Mark, because it was actually really good. I wish, and it is written down. I need to go find it. There's one reason I say suicide is the most selfish thing you can ever possibly do. It's not, you've gotten to a point where you think you cannot deal with the pain anymore. And man, I get that, because my pain was unreal. The emotional pain, and they talk about heartbreak and how it, heartbreak, and I'd never felt it in my life until that year of hell. And I literally, my chest hurt every single day of my life. I mean, it was literally like somebody had reached in and set a black hole inside of my heart and it was trying to suck everything in around it. And to give into that and not think about what you're doing to those around you is unbelievably selfish, because it does leave, and it's not just your family, because you're questioning as a friend. Just think how that guy's family questioned themselves. We should have seen this coming. We should have helped. No, you can't, because that's the thing about most depressed people is they hide it from everyone. They don't want help. They don't want you to know until it's too late. And granted, there are some people that go down the suicide route to intentionally hurt the people that love them and care. But that's a whole nother area of context. But when you're in a situation where you got a friend that you found out is suicidal, the girl that reached out to Mark sent him a text that was really long, and in it she goes, "I'm done with this life." And boy, I'll tell you what, that is the sign that you need to do something immediately. Because what I told Mark is you need to try and get face-to-face with them. And as soon as you do get face-to-face with them, don't say anything, just walk up and wrap your arms around them. And hold on, because initially they're going to fight, but they will give in, and they'll lean into the hug, and then don't let go until they do. Because you might be there for 30 minutes wrapped up in their arms as they cry. Because when you're depressed, that demon in your brain doesn't want you to get help. But your soul knows you need somebody to care. It wants to be hugged. It wants to be loved. And when you finally get that physical contact that you feel as caring and loving, it will break you. It will break you very, very quickly. And not everybody, but a lot of people are going to end up sobbing into your shoulder as you hold on. You may actually have to hold them up because their knees may buckle. And then I told him the next most important thing is sit down and ask them what's going on. And those should be the last words you say until they finish talking. Just sit down and shut up. And it's the hardest thing almost all of us can do, because we love to involve ourselves in a conversation. And man, let me tell you, that's my worst thing is because I know I can help, I want to immediately start helping. And the best thing you can do is, one, either take notes physically or mentally as they're talking to you, and listen in between the words, because they're not going to tell you what they need verbally. They're going to tell you what they need in between those sentences. Like that hug, right? They're not going to say, "Oh my God, could you give me a hug, please?" That's not something a depressed person is going to say, but they need it desperately. And so listen in between and just listen to them, because they crave that. And that's kind of what the writing is. It's getting people to listen in a different format. By reading it, they're listening to your story, right? And so when you sit there and listen, it allows them to speak without their demon getting control. And as they speak, they're going to start to loosen up. They're going to start to understand that there is some care in the world, that somebody is concerned about them, because you are listening to them. And it's not going to, like Mark still has one friend that he's having a lot of trouble with still. And so it's not going to help everybody, but it's the best thing you can possibly to get down there. And the second thing I told him after he came back and he told me what had happened was, whatever happens next is not your fault. You did everything you could possibly do. Whatever happens next, it's on them. They know you're there. They know you care. If they kill themselves, it's on them, not on you. You did what you could do. It is not your fault. Your brain is going to try and make it your fault, because we all think that we're superhuman. And by reaching out to somebody, we could have saved them. No, you can't. If they're that far off the cliff, nobody can save them. You gave them a moment where they felt better, and that you should take pride in, because you gave them a chance. They chose not to take that chance. Like you with your friend. Yes, there were underlying conditions, but even before that, there was nothing you could have done. You probably went through 200 or 300 texts, right?
Oh yeah, easy.
Was there anything in there that gave you a clue as to where he was?
Right. No, not really. And I was actually told afterwards that one of the reasons why I would get those texts, and I went back over and saw they were kind of at a like they was like repeating in a certain order. So and the reason being was that what I found out afterwards is because he was back home where I grew up, and I was, I live in Las Vegas now, but I wouldn't hear from him for a while, and then I would hear from him, and apparently he had mandatory injections for his medication for his depression. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so every time I would get one, I was talking to my cousin, and he goes that he probably had just had a shot every time he'd talk to you, because you become super, super positive and like see everything. And then towards the end of the month, when it was time for a new shot, it would start to kind of tumble, kind of not out of control, but he wouldn't be, well, I mean, eventually, obviously he did get out of control, but it was like that periodically it would come back, and everything was, I mean, like I said, it was, I'm going to be the guy that people write stories about, because I'm going to dig myself up out of this. And, I was like, I'm rooting for you. This is, so that's where, that conversation was there.
Yeah.
And, I'd known that he had, some things going on, but I didn't know that it was to that point. But you're right.
Right, because he never came out and said, look, man, I'm really thinking about killing myself and I need help.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like with Mark and his friend, you can't help these people until they want. It's like being a drug addict. You can't help a drug addict until they want to be helped.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody knows that. But depression has been hidden for so long and had that stigma for so long that we don't understand it as well as drug addiction or alcohol addiction or smoking addiction. I talk to a lot of people, like my friends that smoke, and I'm always on them. I'm like, why? You know how bad it is for you, but they don't care yet. Their pain level hasn't reached a place where they're willing to stop. But every one of my friends that I know that has stopped smoking got that overarching why and quit cold turkey one day and never picked them back up. Yeah. And it's because they figured out their why. They had a reason and they wanted help and they got it done. It's like me, when this last time I was like, my God, I've got to get out of this. I'm going to die if I don't. And you've seen, ever since 1993, my mantra has been #change or die. Yeah. Right. So you'll see it in a lot of my posts. You've probably seen it inside of our group, change or die. That's my thing, because if I don't change what was going on, if I stay who I was, then I will die. I can't be that kind of person anymore. And so I put my call out for help by writing, right? And I didn't ask anybody in particular. I didn't say, hey, I need help. Now, back when I was going through this, I screamed for help. The first time I tried to kill myself, I was like, oh my God, I need help. I need help bad. And I went and got professional help for it. And it helped get me through that portion of it, but it didn't give me the cure. It didn't keep me out of that vicious cycle. Mm-hmm. And so until your friend had said, oh my God, I'm dying. I can't go on with this life. You can't hold yourself responsible, because you're not. If they aren't asking for help, you can't help them. By answering his text and by being there and by rooting for him, that was phenomenal. Because how many other people did he reach out to that did not do that?
Yeah. Well, and especially at that point, he had probably burnt a lot of bridges as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
and some maybe on purpose. I mean, now I'm just trying to think of the kind of where you're at. And one of the things that I actually thought of, because, and I thought of this back at the time as well, but it just reminded me as you're saying that people, they have the stigma, they want to hide it. And my thought, and I could be way off base here, but my theory, I guess, is that depression will hit intelligent people harder because they think they can hide it better. And he was one of the smartest people I've ever met. And and then he gets in this argument where he shouldn't have this mental, it becomes even more of a stigma because he thinks that he should be able to outthink this issue that he has. And then it just keeps diving deeper. That was just my thought through it. I don't know if that makes any sense at all.
Oh, no, I thought the same thing. I mean, I've got a master's degree, and there are many times when I have actually believed, they say ignorance is bliss.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an experience many years ago at Universal Studios City Walk. We were in the Motown Cafe, and Motown Cafe has a dance floor with huge statues of Elvis and Michael Jackson and Buddy Holly and I think Stevie Wonder is the other one. But we were eating dinner, and it was, I don't know, 5:30, 6 o'clock before we were about to go back into the park. And there was a kid out on the dance floor dancing. And you could look at him and tell immediately that he was a Down syndrome kid. But he was having the time of his life. And he was smiling, and a Michael Jackson song had come on, and he'd go over to the Michael Jackson statue and do the crotch grab and thrust. Or an Elvis song had come on, and he'd do the whole hip shake that Elvis did. I mean, you could tell he loved doing this. And there was this group of fools that were probably in their 20s or something, sitting a couple of tables away from us, that were making fun of him. And I thought, God, what a shame that they can't see anything other than their own fear. And they can't see the joy that the pure love of life that this kid is experiencing. And then I thought, how great is it that his parents are over there and they can probably hear what I'm hearing, but they're allowing him to have his fun.
Yeah.
And it made me think that, of all, and I've known several Down syndrome children. My goddaughter actually was a nanny for one of them. She took him to do everything during the day when she was in college. And every one of them are usually the happiest people you will ever meet on earth. And I thought, man, it's probably because they are Down syndrome and they don't really understand all the stresses that we put on ourselves as adults, right? And I think that plays into because if you think about the most intelligent people on the planet are usually the weirdest people on the planet because they get trapped inside of their own heads. Steve Jobs, Albert Einstein. I mean, you look at these people that they exist on a different plane from us. Mm-hmm. And their lives are generally harder because of that. And I think that's the same way, like you were saying with depression, is because you're as intelligent as you are, and you sit there and you tell yourself, I can get out of this. I am not this. And then the demon starts winning. And because you can think so rapidly, the thoughts happen faster and faster and faster. And it drives you further into that deal. But because you are talented, and man, let me tell you, there wasn't a single family member that knew I was suffering that bad. Well, I mean, obviously the two that I didn't speak to didn't, but my dad had no clue either.
Yeah.
Even after he had kind of gotten himself back after losing his wife, he still didn't understand until I called him that day and said, I've got to get some professional help or I will die. And he freaked out. I mean, completely freaked out because he had no clue that it was coming. None of my friends knew. Not a single one of them knew. But I still talk to them when I would talk to somebody. Mm-hmm. And I just hate that one, if I had actually finished that job that night, that the devastation that I would have wrought on my father I would have deserved to have gone to hell just for that. Or my friends like you that would have questioned themselves. Yes, everybody could have understood, well, he lost his grandmother and he lost his fiance and his best friend and his dog. And, I can understand why he did it, but how could I have helped stop it? it's such a loss. And you can't, because I kept it from you. And I don't want anybody out there that's got friends or family that's suffering with this stuff. Do not blame yourself, unless you're the parent that, beat your child for years, and then maybe you deserve some blame. But
Yeah.
if you're on the periphery, you don't. You can't help. Until they ask for help, you just can't help. But once they reach out, once they cry for help, get in there immediately. Don't badger them. Once you get that hug in and you listen to them and see what they're asking for inside of what they're not asking for, then start helping. Don't push them to suggest that they get professional help. Don't push them for it, because it's like telling a teenage daughter they can't go out with a certain guy. It's just going to make them want to go out with that guy. Yeah. And if you push them to get help, they're going to avoid it like the plague. Just suggest it and let it ride. And then do whatever they need. Like if it's going and having coffee once a week and listening to them again, do that. If it's, dropping by with, takeout one night and listening to them, do that. Or if it's just, a text every now and then saying, hey, I love you, just wanted you to know. That alone might be the difference in them surviving and not surviving, because they've asked for help and they know you're there if they need it. Other than that, there's just nothing you can do. They're an addict.
That's awesome. I think that's great advice, because I feel like there's a lot of people, like even you saying that the people, like myself, that felt like I did something or didn't do enough, like those people. But imagine if you would have been successful, not just the hurt that you would have brought upon your family and friends, but now the, Mark's family and friends, Mark's friends' family, the other 3 people that that you saved, all of them. I mean, that is, it's amazing at what a friend of mine and I were talking, I don't know, probably like 6 months ago. And we're talking because it was the taboo, suicide is being taboo. And when you talk about, because we're having a conversation about suicide. And when you do that, people go, whoa, are you okay? Or that's like the first thing that happens. And we're like, no, we're talking about like suicide. That thought, we were saying we were thinking about suicide, not that that's something we were going to do. But the thought of, if you were at that spot of, like, my mindset that I have is that if I'm like, suicide means that I'm done and I'm over. But why wouldn't I come out swinging? And even if I went bankrupt and broke, why wouldn't I do that first? Not saying that that's going to help, but like backed up against the wall. I guess I grew up playing sports, so maybe I have a little more competitive, competitive nature. And like when you get to that point, and I guess this has 2 points. One, when you get to that point, why not try and fight back? But also 2, the conversation of, again, that the taboo, the stigma of just the word puts it into a negative. Like and this is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here, is because I want people to know that it's okay to feel depressed. I mean, I get depressed sometimes. I think everybody does, and it's just different levels. But having it be okay.
Okay. Let me stop for just a second there.
Yep.
You don't get depressed. You get down.
Okay.
And there's a huge difference. Depression is an actual physical change in the brain. Okay. It is a mental disease. Okay. It's not. It's the chemicals that run your brain, and the network of neurons are no longer functioning properly. Yes, we all get down and we get sad and things happen, but it's not the same as being depressed. Depression is a completely different animal. And I've said this a million times to I can't tell you how many people, is until you have literally considered killing yourself, you will never understand somebody that does. Okay? Because until you've gotten to that point where life has no meaning, you wonder, why don't you fight? If you're backed into that corner, why aren't you fighting? Well, the thing is you fought and 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 you fought, and finally you don't have any fight left.
That's a great point.
And the pain, and what drove me was the pain. I fought the pain for 6 months, and it never got any better. And I had gone from 185 pounds to 140 pounds. I was skin and bones. no muscle mass. I mean, I'd been a shut-in for 6 months basically.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to tell you what that feels like. You just get to a point where the idea of dealing with it another day is more than you can stand. It feels like if you don't end it, it will end you. Like I honestly thought that I was going to die from the pain, because I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't think. My only escape was The Legend of Zelda. I ought to write Nintendo and tell them they saved my life. But the day I laid down on my couch with my dog at my side and asked myself the question, should I continue to live? Why should I continue to live with this pain? I literally did not get up off that couch for 3 days as I tried and searched and prayed and begged and tried to find any reason at all that I should live. And I couldn't. I literally couldn't. Because I had withdrawn from so much in my life. And that's the biggest mistake that we all so it's still a little hard to talk about. It's the mistake that we all make is by withdrawing, we take ourselves away from the reasons that we have to live. And the thing that saved my life with that girl was she literally came over and drugged me out of the house. I had no intention. I've been laying on a couch for 3 days. I had the rope coiled. I was just trying to figure out how to get it through the rafters so that it wouldn't bring the house down on me and I'd live. And by her pestering me and telling me that she was not going to, and I talked her into joining a Powerpuff football league, like, I don't know, 9 months before this. And it was their first game and she wanted me to come out and see her play. And I resisted and resisted and resisted and resisted. And finally I was like, what's an hour? An hour is not going to kill me. And so I went out and the damnedest thing happened. Here's a bunch of, 18, 19-year-old girls that are playing football that are coming to me about what to do and how to throw and how to run and how to catch and what play should we run. And they score a touchdown and they're all hugging up on me and holy crap, I had fun. And when I got home that night, it was like my entire theory had just been blown apart by this unreal nuclear explosion. And how could I possibly have fun when that did not exist in my life anymore? And it dawned on me it didn't exist in my life anymore because I had taken it out of my life. And that was where I came up with Change or Die, because I knew that I had to change everything about who I was in order to continue to live, to be a better person, to not end up here again. And that was the biggest mistake that I made, was trying to do it myself. And it was like trying to learn calculus without a textbook or a teacher.
Yeah.
And so developing that emotional side and the rational side and a new personality was more than I could handle. And I ended up suicidal again. And that was when I finally started getting help. And the third time was just recently when I started gaining so much weight. And I recognized the signs. I got lucky. I recognized the signs of the demon coming back. And thank God Ryan got us writing, because I don't know. Well, I tell you where I realized it and how I realized it was. Have you ever been? You went to our live events, right?
Yeah. I was in Orlando, I think, is where you brought the jump ropes, and you and Jeff were jump roping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was right at the beginning of all of this. So the live event beforehand, I've never missed a live event. In 6 years now, I have never missed a single live event. I skipped the one in Tahoe. And I told Ryan it was because I was too busy and I'm starting a new business and I don't have time. And when things broke and I realized the entire reason I'd skipped that was because I had gained all that weight. I was 275 pounds and I didn't want to be around my friends. I didn't want them to see me looking like this. I didn't want to be in that atmosphere of fun and love and learning. And I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it again. Okay, this has to stop, and this has to stop now. And that was when Ryan kind of came up with the whole IOD thing. Mm-hmm. And while I was trying to get myself back, the IODs gave me the path to figure out how to do it this time, and without professional help and without drugs, and I hated the drugs. I think we probably went through 6 different ones when I was going through this, and none of them really made a difference for me. Not that they won't for some people. Mm-hmm. They just didn't help me because, one, I'm a redhead, and apparently that it makes things metabolize much slower.
I didn't know that.
I learned that from Carmela. And so I've never reacted to drugs well in my life. Like, it takes bigger doses to work on me than anything else. And so they didn't really help, but this time I had a new path, and that new path did something for me that I've never done before. And that's given me hope that this can actually be over, that the brain is actually healing again. Yeah, the scars are still going to be there, but I think it's like having a keloid scar versus the little line on your arm, you know.
Okay.
Now I'm taking those massive, thick scars and I'm treating them, you know, and they're becoming the little lines now. They'll still be there. I'll still have the demon for the rest of my life. It will be there, but now I know how to shut him up.
Awesome. You were mentioning that woman that dragged you out of the room, you said that after she was your neighbor, and then
No. My fiance was my neighbor. That's what made her and my best friend sleeping together so horrible. I'd met her and her mom actually like 9 months before, and she was going to be an incoming freshman at A&M, and her mom had asked me to take care of her, and I said, look, if she ever needs anything, just have her call me, and here's what you should do. This is what you should get involved in. This is how you can, you know, make friends. And I gave her this big list, and on top of the list was intramurals. It's the best way to meet people and have fun with a group because, man, you know, that team atmosphere like we've got now, that team atmosphere builds friendships. You play together, you practice together, you suffer together, you win together. And those people are people that you can hang on to. And I never saw her again. I mean, literally not a phone call or anything until that night. And I had no idea she'd even hung on to my number, but boy, she was adamant about me coming out to her game that night. I mean, she came over to my house, sat her butt down on my couch and said, I'm not leaving until you come with me.
And then after that, you didn't see her?
Never again.
That's a crazy story.
It is. Amber and several others have said that was an angel.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, that's a pretty cool story.
It's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me, and the only, I mean, how do you explain it? If it wasn't touched by God, you know, and it made me question a lot of my life. Wow. So yeah, it still gives me freaky feelings and tears when I think about it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
How close I came.
Well, lucky for us, she came by and made you go to the game. But I do want to thank you for something that we were just talking about a few minutes ago, because you kind of put into perspective. And one of the reasons I like to have these types of conversations is for people who don't know. Like me and my friend had that conversation, and we're thinking, well, why wouldn't you just keep fighting? But that's us. You just made me realize that's us. That's me thinking where I am now. That's me thinking here, not me thinking down here. And right. So when it makes sense to me now, you know, if I were to go down that path, it may not make sense to me then. So I want to thank you for changing my mindset on that a little bit.
And the easiest way to think about that is, would you ever shoot heroin?
No.
Right. You can't imagine why you would want to do that. I can't imagine why I would want to do that ever. But we're not addicts.
Yeah.
You know, we can't understand the addict mindset. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I can look at somebody and say, oh my God, why don't you fight that urge? And it's because we don't understand.
Yeah.
And suicide's the same thing. When you get to that point, and unless you've been there, you simply cannot understand. And I've talked to other people that have been in my situation and survived, and every one of them has said the same thing. I've tried to tell my family what it was like and that it wasn't their fault, and they just don't understand. I said, you're right, they won't. I understand. I've been there. He understands. He's been there. She understands. She's been there. But everybody outside of us and our family and our friends will never get it. Mm-hmm. Never, because they haven't been that far into their own hell, into the darkness. And honest to God, I hope it's a place you never understand.
Thank you. I don't want to understand either. And you know, like I said, they're really eye-opening for me to understand that it's what I'm thinking. It's not what someone else is thinking. So, and I don't know, like I lost my mom when I was 18, just after I graduated high school. And so I lost her at a young age, but I was kind of forced. She had Alzheimer's, so she didn't really know even who I was for the last, 6 years of her life. And so I was young enough to be kind of forced through it. And it was like, here, this is what it is. Like, here it is. But when people I'm having some friends now that are starting to lose their parents and stuff. And I always try to tell them, hey, I don't know. I don't like when people say, I know what you're going through. I go, I've been through a similar situation. I'll let you know how I handled it. Let me know if you want to grab a beer or something. Let's chat about it. Because I think like what you were saying earlier about how hug them, ask them, shut up, because we want to go fix. We want to be fixers. We want to like take the pain from our friends and make it right. But maybe we don't have maybe the answer is just them talking. It
is. They have to ask for help. They have to get help. They have to help themselves, because that's the worst thing about depression is there's nothing anybody can do. It all has to come from in here. Mm-hmm. You have to pull yourself up and out of that hell. You've got to fight for every handhold. And guess what? You're going to slide down on the way. It's not an easy climb. I mean, think about Tim and his ice climbing. You're going to climb up and you're going to slide down. And you pray to God that you catch a handhold on the way down so that you can start the climb again. Yeah. And that's what it is. It's a fight. It's not easy. And you're right in what you said a second ago about being there and shutting up and listening. And we want to fix, but you can't. Mm-hmm. And I'm like you. Don't get me wrong. I grew up playing sports all the way through college. And I'm that kind of fighter. And if you know that about me, that I'm exactly like you, right? Mm-hmm. But I got to a point where I was ready to end my life. I'm the exact same person that you are. Yeah. I grew up the same way you did. I lost my mom at 29 to breast cancer, my grandmother to Alzheimer's. Do I know what it was like to be 18 and lose my mom to that disease? Absolutely not. But knowing that, and I'm the most competitive person you will ever meet. I'm hyper competitive. And I gave up. Yeah. Because I could not handle the pain anymore. And God, I pray that you never, ever understand that level of pain. And I really, when people talk to me about being suicidal, it breaks my heart, because I know that they've reached that level of pain. And I know there's nothing I can do about it, except hug them and let them talk. Yeah. And hope that they start helping themselves. And maybe through this program that we're working on, we can give them an avenue to achieve some of that self-help that they need. Yeah. It's the best we can do.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's incredible. Do you have any tips or like last things you want to share with anybody on tips, or maybe places they can go to for resources? I mean, is it just Google, or is there like a group forum or something that would be helpful?
No, not really. And that's one of the things I'm actually playing around with creating right now is outside of, like, there are deals out there for dealing with this kind of stuff, but they want to charge like $90 a month to be part of it. And that's not right, because I mean, when I was down I hadn't worked. The only reason I had a place to stay was we owned the condo that I was living in. and I had no money. There's no way I could have gotten online and joined this $90 a month thing.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out a way to set up something that will allow suicide survivors to help those that have not been through it. It's a very tricky situation because you've got to keep the trolls out that'll get in there and prey on the suffering.
Yeah.
Because that's how, a lot of the terrorist organizations are getting these kids to join is by preying on their depression. And so I want to do it so badly, but man, it's complicated and tricky. But yes, there are places you can go online. The biggest tip I can give anybody is talk to your friends, tell them how you feel, because you can't start healing until the people around you understand where you are. And let me take that back. They're not going to understand until they have an idea of where you are, and ask for help. I mean, that's the biggest tip of all, is ask for help. Because until I did that, I was dead. I was absolutely dead. And I'm quite glad that never happened.
Yeah, so am I, and there are a lot of other people as well. I mean, I have no doubt that you'll continue to inspire and save lives. And like I said to Cliff, how many lives he'll impact, he'll never know. And the amount of lives that you save, somebody might listen to you on my podcast right here, and that helps them that you have no idea even listen to it. That comes from my audience, that you may help and may never be told about it. So I appreciate you still keep fighting and sharing that. I know that it's not easy for a lot of people to get out and share, get this vulnerable. I mean, typically, we started this saying, hey, maybe we'll go 20-25 minutes. Now we're at an hour 20, and and I didn't want to stop it because
it's important information, and if anybody wants to, you can find out about my journey on my Facebook page. Just search my name and I'll come up. You'll see this face. And if you want to reach out, please do. I mean, I'm here. Instant message me if you want to keep it private. Post on my Facebook page if you want to, ask a question that may help others in a public forum. But I'm there. I mean, if you need help, God, please reach out. Please.
I'll definitely put a link to the show notes to your. I'll put it on this video as well, but also a link in the show notes so where they can find you on your Facebook page if they need some help. But Scott, thank you so much. I'm very, very thankful and grateful for you to take the time with me to share this with other people, especially right now when people are going to probably feel some feeling the downs and starting to look for places to go, and just knowing that people like you are out there that have gone through it and are willing to share what you've been through and how you've overcome it. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
It's truly my pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott.
You bet. See you later.